Grüezi ragazzi, bienvenue und willkommen to Cannabis Scienzia's LinkedIn Live sessions. Today we have Dr. Fabio Turco, neuropharmacologist and scientific director at Cannabis Scientia. He's joining us again after a very successful first session, which had lots of fans over here, even in Canada. So they're looking forward to today's session. And without further ado, I'm just going to let Dr. Turco talk to us about, tell us directly what you'll be talking about, Dr. Turco. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Hi, Christina. Thank you for this introduction. And hello, everyone. And welcome to today's webinar that is titled Mirror Neurons, DMT, and the Internal Models of the World. I'm happy to have you with us for what I hope will be an interesting talk in the world of neuroscience and consciousness. Before starting, I would like just to remember that I, together with Viola Brugnatelli, am the co-author of the Principle of Clinical Cannabinology. That is an handbook on medical cannabis that covers everything you need to know about medical cannabis. But let's now start with today's topic. Today, we will explore basically three key elements that are mirror neurons, the role of the exogenous and endogenous DMT. And finally, we try to connect these two apparent distinct realities in the building of our mental models or internal models of the world. And together, this topic will help us to explore one central idea, that is how the brain simulates the reality and what happens when it steps beyond the boundary of ordinary perception, whether it can happen during a dream, during deep imagination, or during altered states of consciousness. So let's begin to talk about mirror neurons. And when talking about mirror neurons, we have to go back to the early 1990s in a neuroscience laboratory in Parma, in Italy, where a research group led by Giacomo Rizzolatti were studying the motor cortex of the macaque monkeys, specifically a region of the ventral premotor cortex. Basically, they were observing how neurons responded when monkeys grasped an object. And while they were performing this experiment, something very unexpected happened. Indeed, a monkey, quietly watching a researcher performing the same grasping action, showed activity in the exact same neurons, despite remaining completely still. This means that neurons fired not only when the monkey were grasping an object, when the monkey acted, but also when it observed someone else performing the same action. And this was a really amazing discovery. Indeed, it revealed for the first time a direct neuronal mechanism linking action and perception. And the cells, the neuron responsible of this action, were later called mirror neurons. Since that pivotal discovery, research has expanded to show that mirror neurons are shared by a lot of mammals, including humans. Even if in humans, this system is more complex and more complex and widespread. Now let's go to see what kind of neurons are these mirror neurons. And basically, they are located in the frontal parietal and temporal regions of the brain. They form a network, and the primary hubs of this network are basically the inferior frontal gyrus, that is important for language and imitation. Then we have the ventral premotor cortex that plans and understands motor actions. We have the inferior parietal lobule that is involved in integrating sensory informations. And we also have the superior temporal sulcus, which help to process how our body moves through space. All this area form a network, and there are functional MRI studies that have shown that when we watch someone doing an action, for example, tying their shoes, smiling, or crying, the same neural circuits in our brain are activated as we were performing those actions ourselves. Regarding the kind of neurons, basically these are a subset of visual-motor neurons. This means that they respond to motor stimuli, and they are distinct in some neurons that are called strictly congruent. That means that they fire only when the observed and the executed action completely match. Others are called broadly congruent because they are tuned to the goal of the action rather than the exact movement. For example, it is something with the hand or with a fork. And in this new network, several neurotransmitters are involved. For example, we have the glutamate, that is the main excitatory neurotransmitter in our brain, as well as the GABA, that is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter. And also dopamine and oxytocin are involved. So basically, these are visomotor neurons, but humans that are, and these mirror neurons are common in a lot of animal species. But in humans, we have also audiovisual neurons that are activated when we hear a sound associated to an action, and also neurons connected to emotion and sensation are a part of the same neuronal network of the mirror neurons. But basically, what is happening here? The mechanism involved is called embodied simulation. It means that when we observe someone acting, expressing emotion, our brain automatically simulates that experience internally without needing of conscious efforts. It is as if we are resonating with other, and I like very much this term, resonating, because it's really express what happens with the mirror neurons. We resonate with the other, and this form the basis for empathy, imitation, learning, and even language development. Indeed, these neurons are very, very important for the newborns, for the babies to grow, because they allow babies to imitate the behavior of adults, and this help them to grow to grow imitating the others. And not only grow imitating the others, but also feeling the same emotion that adults are feeling. So they are very important. Indeed, dysfunction in this system have been implicated in various disorders, like the autism spectrum disorders and the kinds of psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia or psychopathy, that are all conditions where social cognition is impaired. So in short, mirror neurons this is what they do, what mirror neurons do, but they can help us also to answer to a very important physiological and also philosophical question, that is, how do we understand others? And so an answer can be through mirror neurons. And as I told before, they are very important for their connection with the empathy, that is our ability to feel and understand what another person is experiencing. You know, empathy is not just sympathy. It's, again, a kind of resonance with other. And mirror neuron are central in this process. For example, when we see someone expressing disgust, the same area of disgust in our brain is activated. And when we see someone feeling pain, the same pain network in our brain is partially activated. So mirror neurons provide a first-person access to other people's experience. And rather being an intellectual action, I mean something doing with the intellect, with the reason, we can say, through mirror neurons, our brain feels the inside, and this makes empathy an emotional event, not just a cognitive event. So basically, these are mirror neurons. Now, move on talking about DMT. And so this molecule that is both familiar and also mysterious, it is called N,N-dimethyltryptamine, better known as DMT. That is a natural compound that exists in plants and animals, and of course also in humans. In the plant world, in the vegetal world, DMT can be found, for example, in the leaves, roots, bark, and seeds of numerous plants, with some species like the acacia, psychotria, and mimosa ones that possess a large amount of this molecule. But even in some common plants like citrus leaf or grasses, we can have DMT. So this is in the plant world, while in the animal kingdom, trace amount of DMT have been detected, especially in mammals and also in humans. So DMT is an ubiquitous molecule, and this spread around the world, both vegetal and animal world, has led some to refer to DMT as a kind of molecular Esperanto. It means a common language embodied in both plant and animal system. And this definition comes from the work of Dr. Rick Strassman, who was the first that during the 1990s, the same period that mirror neurons were discovered, started to study DMT. Indeed, he, at the University of Mexico, started to administer intravenous DMT to healthy volunteers, just to study its physiological action. He wanted to see how it changed, for example, blood pressure, sugar levels, and so on. But the experience reported by the patients were so intense, so otherworldly, so often that involved a connection with the autonomous entity, that he begins to question whether DMT was a mere psychedelic, or it was something that could open access to other dimension of consciousness. And indeed, as you can see in this slide, some years later, he published a very important book that was DMT, the spirit molecule, that it was a book that contributed to to start a renewed scientific and spiritual interest in DMT. And basically, in this book, Strassman proposed that DMT might serve as a can I say, as a biological gateway to mystical experience, and it can possibly play a role in strange and important experience such as in birth, death, dreaming, and even near-death experiences. So now let's have a closer look to DMT, and we can say that chemically, sorry, DMT belongs to the tryptamine family. It shares a backbone with serotonin and melatonin, but also with some psychedelics such as psilocybin or LSD. Its primary action is acting at it's like a partial agonist of serotonin receptors, specifically 5-HT2A receptors, but it can also interact with other serotonin receptors subtypes. It can modulate glutamate transmission. It can activate the sigma-1 receptors, and it can also bind to the TAAR1 or trace amine associated receptor. So this various role, this capacity to bind to a lot of targets suggests that DMT may act as indeed inside our body as a neuromodulator affecting multiple systems. Regarding the effect of DMT, we can say that the pure DMT can be inhaled, injected, or vaporized. The effect when smoked lasts around 10-20 minutes, and as a psychedelic we can say that DMT is unmatched in intensity. Indeed, even small amounts can push the user in very immersive and often indescribable experiences. And for example, here I reported a very important study that was published in 2019 by the group of David Nutt and Carhart Harris, in which they asked two participants to provide ratings of their subjective experience with the DMT at every minute for a total of 20 minutes after DMT or placebo was administered. And first of all, we can see that the statistic test revealed that the subjective intensity of the experience was significantly higher under DMT compared to placebo. Moreover, here what they report, I don't know that if you can rate this, but I told you, for example, some reported I experienced a different reality or dimension. I saw geometric patterns. My sense of sight or space was altered. I felt unusual body sensation. This experience was pleasurable. I felt I was displaced from my body. I experienced elaborate, complex visual images. My imagination was extremely vivid. I felt a general sense of gratitude. The experience had a dreamlike quality. Things looked strange, of course. I can say I felt open, sensitive to all emotion, good or bad. Experienced the presence of another sentiment, another sentient life form, and this is very common among DMT users. I experienced a disintegration of my usual sense of self or ego. My sense of time was altered. My thoughts wandered freely. The experience felt more real than this reality. Sounds influenced things that I saw, and the experience was challenging. So we can see how this experience is very profound, very deep. And unlike, for example, psilocybin or LSD, the DMT experience is usually nonverbal, symbolic, and immediately transformative. And it is not just a distortion of normal perception, but it's a construction, a building up of a completely different reality where we immerse ourselves, and a kind of reality that has its own logic, language, and also intelligence. So this is the experience with DMT, but however, we have to say that DMT is not orally active because it is rapidly broken down by the enzymes called monoamine oxidase in the digestive system. And to overcome this, the Amazonian peoples, Amazonian cultures, develop a now famous preparation known as ayahuasca or yagé. This is a sacred psychoactive brew that is made basically from two constituents. That is the Banisteropis capi, that is a wine containing the monoamino oxidase inhibitors, and Psychotria viridis, or other plants that contain DMT. So the monoamine oxidase inhibitor block the enzyme, allowing DMT to reach the brain, and this led to a deep immersive journey that lasts a long time compared to the pure DMT that lasts, I told you, from 10 to 20 minutes. The experience with ayahuasca can last from 4 to 8 hours, and it's an experience with intensive introspection, vivid vision, and it can give people a kind of emotional catharsis. And among the Amazonian people, this is not just a psychedelic, an hallucinogen. It's not something that alters the reality. It is like a sacrament. Indeed, shamans or curanderos use it to, for example, heal physical and psychological problems, to diagnose diseases, to communicate with plants, with animals, with spirits or ancestors, and also to receive guidance, protection, and insight. And indeed, the shamans, the Amazonian shamans, treat the plant as a teacher, a conscious entity offering wisdom and healing. And usually in these ceremonies that are rituals, collective rituals, they use some song called Icaros that help to improve the experience. And studies, research on ayahuasca have found that this kind of experience can lead to lasting positive changes in our body, including reduced depression, increased emotional regulation, and also very deep existential insight. So we can see that for example, for Dr. Strassman, or for Amazonian people, DMT is not just a molecule; it's a bridge between biology and spirituality. Between we can say also between neurochemistry and mysticism, and it's also very important because DMT challenge the way we understand what our mind is able to do. So disregard anyway exogenous DMT, but how I told you before, also humans produce trace amount of DMT. Indeed, DMT can be endogenous synthesized by enzymes such as the tryptophan decarboxylase and other enzymes that are present in various districts of our body. For example, these enzymes can be found in the lungs, in the thyroid, in the adrenal gland, and also in the brain, for example, in the pineal gland. Now, the presence of these enzymes does not mean that DMT is synthesized, just that we have the machinery to synthesize DMT. In this, the hypothesis that DMT is synthesized is still untested. But anyway, trace amounts of DMT has been found in human cerebrospinal fluid and in other fluids such as blood, plasma, and urine, and also in some tissues like the pineal gland and the lungs. So this led us to hypothesize that DMT can play an endogenous role, for example, like a neurotransmitter. And this is supported also by the fact that, for example, researchers have shown that DMT can be stored in synaptic vesicle and can be released in the brain. Can be released in the brain. But we don't know in which way. Indeed, several untested hypotheses suggest, for example, that DMT can have a role in dreaming, in the REM sleeping, in of course imagination and creativity, in near-death experiences, in mystical and spiritual, of course, states of our mind. And there is some research that suggested that DMT can modulate also our waking perception, also, but in way that we still don't understand. But what we can say that DMT can be a regulator of consciousness. And this we can hypothesize that DMT is an endogenous regulator of our consciousness, and this have implications. For example, this can explain some phenomena such as lucid dreaming, mystical experience, the phenomena of ego dissolution that, for example, people practicing meditation or other kind of related things experience sometime. And this can open the doors to use DMT to treat psychiatric conditions such as trauma, depression, and so on. So, summarizing, we can say that DMT is not just a psychedelic, but it's something native to our to our brain, so to the human being, and it can be able to influence our consciousness, our perception, and our action. So we are talking about mirror neurons. We talked about DMT. Now we try to put together these two apparent, very distinct realities. And this is not easy because we have very few research in this context. But we try to make a connection, even if, as I told you, at first glance, mirror neuron and DMT seems to be worlds apart. Indeed, mirror neurons are involved in phenomena like empathy, imitation, and social condition, while DMT is a powerful psychedelic compound that generates intense and altered state of consciousness. But we can put together these two these two elements in what is called the mental models of the brain, or the internal models of the world that we build in our cell, in ourselves. And more specifically, we can say that DMT and mirror neurons are involved in how the brain generates a felt sense of connection, identity, and meaning. Indeed, as we have seen, mirror neurons are involved in the embodied stimulation. That is the brain's ability to reproduce the actions and the emotion of the others. This system allows us to resonate, to engage in a we-centric experience of reality. We don't just see others, but we feel the others. So we can say that mirror neurons plays a role in creating a coherent sense of self in relation to others. On the contrary, DMT, when ingested or produced in large quantities, alter our consciousness. Subject report, as we have seen, a collapse of ego boundaries, a sense of interconnection with all human beings and all other beings, also plant and animal, vivid imaginary realities that are always often autonomous and intelligent, and a shift from personal identity to a collective or cosmic identity. So what is fascinating about DMT, that it appears to override or dissolve the normal predictive models of the self, of the other, that is built by mirror neurons. So here where a kind of link can emerge. Indeed, both mirror neurons and DMT shape the internal model of reality. Mirror neurons simulates others' emotion and actions, while DMT expand or disrupt this model, allowing access to non-ordinary states of perception. So while mirror neurons build a link, a bound with the others, DMT might temporarily silence these boundary-making functions of the mirror neurons. And indeed, some researchers speculate that DMT can help to disrupt the default neural hierarchies of our brain, including also those involved in social cognition and self-monitoring. And in presence of DMT, what is this embodied simulation induced by mirror neurons can be still active but radically transformed. Indeed, this embodied simulation with DMT does not refer just to ourselves, but to, we can be a mirror not of the others, but of the cosmos, the entire cosmos is itself. So, in conclusion, while research connecting mirror neuron and DMT are very few, are sparse, we can trace some parallel, and we can say that while mirror neurons underpin our ordinary empathy, that is our ability to understand and feel with others, DMT might open the gate to radical empathy, that is a state in which the separation between self and other, inner and outer, and even life and death is temporarily dissolved. And in conclusion, this leads to a very exciting hypothesis, according to me, that is, can DMT modulate or override the embodied the simulation system of mirror neurons, allowing us to allowing consciousness to enter broader, more fluid, and to lead to a different identification of the self and of the other. We still don't know, and we are waiting for more research to dissolve the doubt in this field. So I arrived at the conclusion. I arrived at the conclusion of this talk. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your attention, and see you next time.
Hello. Well, I mean, thank you very much. That was very, very interesting and very enriching. I did write down quite a few questions, but I just wanted to say that as I was writing them down, like the next sentence, you were answering it. So I really appreciate the way you structured the presentation. It was very informative. But
thank you.
You mentioned something, like about vivid dreams and lucid dreams. And I just know that THC kind of does the opposite. THC inhibits dreaming. Could you explain the relationship between the two, or?
Yes, I told you this is a not very studied field, but we know that THC it's a kind of suppressor of the dreaming state because it acts on the REM state of dreaming, shortening the time that we experience this REM phase. That is the phase in which we produce our dreams. On the contrary, DMT is supposed to be a substance that is released by our body during REM dreaming, that probably someone speculates that DMT build our dreaming. So yes, they have two opposite effects, one suppressing dreaming, the other maybe creating dreaming. But we know that THC have this role because a lot of research demonstrate this. In the case of DMT, it's just an hypothesis, just a speculative, something speculative, because no research have until now revealed this point.
Very, very interesting. And then, speaking of mirror neurons and empathy, I know that the amygdala is heavily involved in emotions. Could you tell us a little bit about that interaction, like DMT and the amygdala?
Well, as I told you, we still don't know if it interacts with the amygdala. At the beginning, it was supposed that DMT was produced by pineal gland that is close to amygdala. Also because it's very similar in structure to melanin that is produced by pineal gland. But so far, no researchers have found that it really happens. I mean, that DMT is released in our brain following some events. So it's just speculation. What is sure that researchers have found traces of DMT in our cerebrospinal fluid. So in some way we produce DMT. We don't know if it's a direct production or it's a sub-product. For example, some kind of transformation of serotonin can lead to DMT in our brain. We don't know this. So we cannot say if DMT really interacts with amygdala or not. These are just hypotheses.
I see. Very interesting.
A lot need to be discovered about DMT in our body. We know a lot about the role of exogenous DMT, but our endogenous DMT is still something that is in the realm of hypothesis.
Wow. And another one of my favorite sessions. Every session is my favorite.
Thank you very much, Christina.
Yeah. So just for everyone viewing this live, just drop the questions in the chat and we'll get back to you. Dr. Turco will answer as many as possible. And if not, we'll definitely make sure the questions get answered. Join us again next Tuesday for another fascinating presentation. And thank you so much for your attention, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.